There is no sound, not the soft hum of a distant road, not the faint blue glow of a screen somewhere in the room, not the particular silence that modern life makes, that tense, waiting, quiet, full of things unfinished and thoughts half-formed. This silence is different. This silence is complete. You become aware of your body first, the weight of it, the way it presses into the earth beneath you, and the earth here is soft, dark, richly alive in a way that soil rarely feels anymore. It gives slightly beneath your presence, as though it is welcoming you, as though it has been here long enough that one more resting body is simply another thing the world is holding gently. You breathe in. The air enters your lungs differently here. It is thicker, somehow, richer. There is no exhaust in it, no metallic edge, no recycled quality. It smells of wet bark and deep root systems, and something green and ancient that does not have a name in any language you have ever spoken. It smells the way the world smells when it is completely, utterly itself, when nothing has yet arrived to change it. You breathe out, and with that breath, something in your chest loosens. You are lying on the ground of a world that is 3 million years old, or rather, a world that is exactly as old as it has always been, only the calendar is different. The year is somewhere in a long, slow era that your future will call the Pliocene. There are no humans here yet. Not quite. There are creatures that walk on 2 legs in distant warm grasslands far to the south. Creatures that are beginning, just beginning, to look at the sky with something like wonder. But they are far away, and they are not thinking about anything that resembles your world. Here, in this moment, there is only Earth being Earth. You open your eyes slowly. The sky above you is a color that exists before pollution and before particulate matter and before the particular haziness of a world with too many fires burning at once. It is a blue so deep and unfiltered that it feels almost impossible, the kind of blue that makes the chest ache quietly, not with sadness, but with the recognition of something ancient and beautiful that you had forgotten was possible. Clouds move across it, slowly, enormously. They are not hurrying anywhere because there is nowhere to hurry to. They drift on air currents that have been circling this planet for millions of years, following the same invisible paths that water has always taken through the sky, from ocean to cloud to rain to river and back again. A cycle so vast and patient it makes every deadline you have ever felt seem very small and very far away. You let your eyes close again. There is a breeze. It moves across your face with a kind of tenderness that weather rarely shows in a world that is being watched and measured and worried about. It simply moves, cool at the edges, warmer in the pauses between gusts. It carries with it the faint smell of a river somewhere nearby, clean water moving over ancient stone, and beneath that, the deeper, darker smell of a forest that has been growing, slowly and without interruption, for longer than you can hold in your mind. The ground beneath you is breathing. That is not metaphor. The earth here is so alive, so thick with root networks and fungal threads, and the slow, patient business of decomposition and growth, that it moves, barely, in its own biological rhythm. A millimeter, less. But you can feel it if you are still enough, if you are quiet enough, and you are becoming both of those things. You let your arms rest at your sides. You feel the weight of your hands. This is something the modern world rarely allows. The full, unhurried awareness of how heavy and how real your own body is. Your hands have been gripping things, screens and handles and steering wheels and worries. But here, in this ancient air, they have nothing to grip. The earth will hold them. The earth has been holding things for 4 billion years, and it has never once dropped anything. You are safe here. The thought arrives not as something you tell yourself, but as something you simply notice, the way you notice temperature or light. There is nothing in this world that is coming for you. There is nothing scheduled. There is nothing overdue. The creatures that move through these ancient forests are not thinking about you. The river is not concerned with you. The sky does not need anything from you. You are a visitor in a world that does not require your participation. And there is something about that, something profound and relieving, that you feel in the very center of your chest, just below the sternum. A quiet unlocking. The breeze passes over you again. Somewhere, not close but not far, something large and unhurried moves through vegetation. You can hear the soft crush of ancient ferns beneath considerable weight, the low rustle of broad leaves pushed aside, and then silence again. Whatever it is not alarmed. It is simply moving through its worlds the way it has always moved, without urgency, without fear of falling behind, without any awareness that the world could be any other way than it is. You breathe in again, longer this time. Hold it for just a moment at the top, the way your body naturally wants to, the way breathing actually works when it is not being rushed. And then let it go. The prehistoric earth exhales with you. The trees breathe out oxygen into air that will, millions of years from now, help fill the lungs of your ancestors. The cycle is already turning. Slowly, invisibly, with a patience that borders on the sacred. You are 3 million years in the past. You are completely, entirely safe. There is nothing to do here but rest. And somewhere in that ancient silence, the world continues its slow and beautiful work around you, unhurried, unworried, as it always has been and as it will continue to be long after every urgency you have ever felt has dissolved back into the deep and patient earth. You are still lying on your back. There is no reason to move yet. The earth beneath you is patient. It has been here long enough that a few more minutes, a few more hours, a few more centuries make no difference to it at all. And slowly, that patience begins to transfer to you, like warmth moving through stone, like water finding its level. Gradually, without effort, your body begins to match the rhythm of a world that is in absolutely no hurry. You look up at the sky. It is enormous. This is the first thing you notice, not the color, not the clouds, but the sheer, uninterrupted size of it. There are no buildings at its edges, no wires crossing it, no aircraft trails dissolving slowly across its face. It simply goes in every direction, from horizon to horizon, without anything interrupting its enormity. A sky the way skies were always meant to be seen. Complete, whole, unbothered. The clouds are moving. They are large, genuinely, massively large, in a way that is difficult to hold in the mind all at once. These are not the thin, hurried clouds of a pressured afternoon. These are ancient weather systems, slow and sovereign, built from moisture that has been cycling through this atmosphere for millions of years. They move with the particular confidence of things that have never been late for anything, drifting, reshaping, one edge dissolving into blue while another edge builds itself upward in great soft towers that catch the light and hold it gently. You watch one cloud in particular. It is changing shape, slowly, so slowly that you have to be patient to see it, which is exactly the kind of patience this world is asking of you right now. The left edge is pulling apart, thinning into wisps, becoming sky again. The right side is thickening, curling upward, reaching. In the time it takes you to notice this, something in your mind has gone quiet. The particular noise that your thoughts usually make, that low, constant murmur of things remembered and things anticipated, has dimmed, not disappeared, just dimmed, turned down like a voice in another room, growing less distinct. The sky does not know it is beautiful. This is something worth sitting with for a moment. Every color, every gradation of light, every slow movement of cloud across blue, none of it is performing for you. None of it has been arranged. This sky has been looking like this, some version of this, for hundreds of millions of years, in every direction, over every empty landscape, whether anything was watching or not. The beauty here is completely, entirely unself-conscious. It simply is. And there is something about witnessing beauty that does not know it is being witnessed that is profoundly calming, profoundly restful. You do not need to respond to it. You do not need to photograph it or describe it or share it or even fully understand it. You can simply let it be there, above you, and let your eyes receive it without effort. The blue deepens slightly near the top of the sky. This is where the atmosphere thins, where the air becomes less dense, where the molecules scatter light differently, where the color shifts from the warm blue of the horizon to something darker and more infinite directly overhead. If you stare at it long enough, that deep central blue begins to feel less like a ceiling and more like a depth, less like something above you and more like something you are floating inside. The sky is not up. You are not below it. You are simply suspended within a sphere of light and air and ancient atmosphere, held in place by the same gravity that has been holding everything on this planet since long before the first creature crawled out of the sea. You are being held. That is what gravity is, really. Not a force pulling you down. A force keeping you here, keeping you close. The planet has its arms around you in the only way a planet knows how. Firmly, constantly, without exception, without ever once forgetting. A bird passes across the sky above you. It is large. Its wingspan casts a brief, moving shadow that sweeps across your face and is gone. You do not know what it is. The name it will eventually be given has not been invented yet, and perhaps that is the most peaceful part of all of this. You are in a world without taxonomy, without classification, without the particular human urge to label and categorize and file away. That bird is simply a creature moving through the air on wings that evolution has been perfecting for millions of years. It is neither rare nor common. It is simply alive, up there, doing what it does, completely unaware that in 3 million years something will give it a Latin name and put it in a book. It disappears beyond the tree line. The sky continues. You notice the light is changing slightly, warming at the edges, the blue acquiring a faint gold at the horizon where the sun is beginning its long, slow arc. In this era, the sun moves across the sky with the same geometry it always has, the same reliable path, rising in the east, crossing slowly, descending in the west. A rhythm so constant and so ancient that your nervous system is calibrated to it at a level far deeper than thought. Something in your body knows this light, recognizes it, feels safe inside it. Your eyelids grow heavier, not because you are forcing them, not because you are trying to sleep, but because your body, in the presence of this vast, unhurried sky, is remembering what it feels like to be truly, completely, unguardedly relaxed. To have nothing to scan for, nothing to monitor, no alert waiting on the horizon of your awareness. The clouds drift. The light shifts by degrees so small they are barely measurable. And you lie there in a world without names for anything and let the sky simply be the sky. You are not behind on anything here. You are not missing anything. You are exactly where you are, beneath an ancient sky that has been beautiful long before anything existed to call it that. And you are breathing slowly, and the earth is holding you, and the clouds are moving with a patience that makes all urgencies seem like something you only dreamed. And somewhere in the quiet above you, the atmosphere of a 3 million-year-old world continues its ancient and indifferent work, scattering light, carrying the slow breath of an entire planet back and forth across the face of an Earth that is, in this moment, perfectly, completely at peace, as are you. You rise slowly, not with effort, not with the particular morning urgency of a body that has somewhere to be. You rise the way water rises gradually, finding its own level, unhurried by anything outside itself. First your awareness shifts, then your weight redistributes, and then you are sitting, and then standing, and the world arranges itself around your new position without complaint. The forest is close. It begins just a few meters from where you were lying, a dense breathing wall of ancient vegetation that in your time would have no equivalent. These are not the managed forests of a later world. There are no paths cut through them, no trails worn smooth by generations of deliberate feet. The undergrowth grows exactly as it wants to, in every direction, following light and water and the invisible instructions written into every seed that has ever fallen here. You move toward the sound. You had not noticed it consciously until this moment, but it has been there since you woke, a low, continuous murmur beneath the silence, not interrupting it, part of it. The sound of water moving over stone, a river, somewhere just beyond the first line of trees, speaking in the language that rivers have always spoken. Patient, repetitive, deeply, fundamentally calming, in a way that requires no explanation, because your nervous system understood it, long before your mind had words for anything. You step into the forest edge. The light changes immediately, filters, becomes green gold and soft, broken into moving fragments by leaves overhead that are large, genuinely large, some of them the size of both your hands, spread wide. The canopy here is dense and layered, built over decades of slow competition for light, each tree finding its angle, its particular relationship with the sun. Beneath it, the air is cooler, closer. It smells of moisture and dark earth, and the particular green aliveness of things growing without interruption. Your feet find the ground carefully. The forest floor is deep with accumulated time, layer upon layer of fallen leaves, decomposed seasons, the slow, patient recycling of everything that has ever lived and fallen here. It gives softly beneath each step. There is no sharp edge to this ground, no hardness, only the deep, yielding softness of earth that has been building itself, quietly, for longer than any mind can comfortably hold. And then you see the river. It arrives between the trees as light arrives, gradually, in glimpses, through gaps in the vegetation, until suddenly you step out onto a low bank, and it is simply there, wide and slow and ancient, moving with a kind of authority that comes not from speed, but from absolute certainty of direction. This river knows where it is going. It is known for millions of years. It carved this path through stone and soil with a patience that borders on the geological, and now it simply follows what it has made, a smooth, inevitable passage through a world that has grown up around it. You sit at the water's edge. The bank is soft here, damp clay and fine silt, compressed by nothing, untouched by anything that would harden or disturb it. You sit and your weight settles, and the earth accepts it the way it accepts everything, completely, without resistance, without judgment. The water moves past you. You watch the surface. It is not perfectly smooth. No natural river surface is. It dimples and shifts, catches light in brief flashes, swirls around a partially submerged stone a few meters out, creates a small persistent eddy on the downstream side that spins slowly, leisurely, as though it has nowhere else to be, which it does not. The river does not have a schedule. It is simply following the oldest instruction in the world. Find the lowest point. Move toward it. Keep moving. There is something in this that your body understands without being told. The sound of it is working on you now. That continuous, layered murmur, water over stone, water against bank, water folding over itself in the shallows, is filling the space in your mind where thoughts usually live. Not violently, not intrusively, gently, the way a soft sound fills a room, not by forcing anything out, but by being so present, so continuous, that other things simply have less room to persist. Your breathing has slowed. You notice this the way you notice temperature, as a fact rather than an achievement. Your chest rises and falls with a rhythm that is closer now to sleep than wakefulness. Each breath comes in a little more slowly. Each exhale goes a little further, empties a little more completely. The river breathes too, in its way exhaling mist in the cooler air above the surface, the water releasing what it carried from higher ground, letting it return to the sky. Everything here is releasing something. The trees release oxygen. The river releases mist. The dark soil releases warmth as the day progresses. Even the stones in the riverbed are releasing, infinitely slowly. The minerals they have been holding since they were formed, dissolving into the water molecule by molecule, becoming part of the river, traveling toward whatever sea this river eventually finds. Nothing holds on here. That is the lesson of this place, if it can be called a lesson. Everything is in the process of becoming something else. The leaf becomes soil. The soil becomes stone. The stone becomes silt. The silt travels by river to the sea and becomes, eventually, new stone again. The cycle is so vast and so patient that no individual part of it ever feels any urgency. Because on the time scale of the cycle itself, everything is right on time. You are right on time. A creature disturbs the water upstream, something low and wide, moving unhurriedly through the shallows, unbothered by your presence. It does not look at you. You do not exist in its awareness in any significant way. You are simply another warm thing sitting near the river. And the river does not distinguish between you and the stone you are sitting beside. And neither, really, does the creature that wades through the shallows and then disappears again into the forest on the far bank. The water settles back into its rhythm. The sound continues. You let your eyes rest on the middle distance, that soft, unfocused gaze that happens naturally when the mind is releasing its grip on things. Not looking at anything in particular, simply receiving. The river moving, the light moving on the water, the slow, periodic drip from an overhanging branch where last night's moisture has been collecting all morning and is only now, drop by drop, returning to the river it came from. Drop, a pause. Drop, a longer pause. You feel each one somewhere behind your eyes, a soft, rhythmic punctuation in the continuous murmur of the water. Your thoughts, what remains of them, begin to follow the same rhythm. Arriving, pausing, dissolving, arriving, pausing, dissolving. The river has been doing this since long before you arrived, and it will continue long after you are gone. And there is something about that continuity, that vast, reliable, utterly indifferent continuity, that is the most comforting thing you have felt in a very long time. You do not need to hold anything together here. The river is doing that. The earth is doing that. The ancient, patient world is holding itself together with the same quiet competence it has always had, and it does not need your help, and you do not need to offer any. You can simply sit here at the edge of a river that has always been, and listen to the oldest sound in the world, and let it carry whatever remains of your wakefulness slowly, gently, irresistibly downstream. You do not hear them at first. That is how it always is with large things in ancient forests. They do not announce themselves. They do not need to. Their size gives them a kind of sovereignty that has nothing to do with aggression or display. It is simply the quiet authority of something that has existed long enough and grown large enough that the world arranges itself around their movement rather than the other way around. You become aware of them gradually. First, there is a change in the forest, something subtle. The birds that have been calling softly in the mid-canopy go quiet, not in alarm, but in the particular, attentive silence of creatures that have learned to pay attention when something large is nearby. Then the undergrowth at the far tree line moves, not violently, a slow, continuous displacement of broad leaves and low branches, as though the forest itself is parting, making room, the way it always has, for what is coming through. And then you see them. They emerge from the tree line in single file, moving along what is not quite a path, but has been traveled enough times by enough weight that the ground remembers them. 3 of them, large beyond easy comprehension, the kind of large that the modern world has almost entirely lost, that scale of animal that makes the landscape feel different, that makes the air feel occupied in a new way. They are distant relatives of creatures you might recognize, broad-shouldered, deep-chested, moving with the slow, raucing deliberateness of bodies that carry significant weight and have learned, over millions of years, the most efficient way to carry it. They are not alarmed by you. You are downwind and still and small, and the world is full of small, still things sitting near rivers. You do not register as a threat. You barely register at all. And this, being invisible, being irrelevant to the enormous ancient business of these creatures, is its own kind of peace. To be unseen by something this old and this large is to be briefly released from the burden of being perceived. They move toward the river. Their footsteps are heavier than you expect, each one a soft compression of earth, a gentle shudder that you feel more than hear, a reminder that mass at this scale has its own relationship with the ground, not violent, not dramatic, simply present in a way that smaller things are not. Each step lands with a patience that matures the river, matures the clouds, matures everything else in this ancient world that has learned, through deep evolutionary time, that there is no advantage in rushing. The largest one reaches the water first. It stands at the river's edge for a moment, doing nothing, simply standing. Its breathing is audible. From where you sit, a slow, enormous respiration, the lungs of something this size, moving air in quantities that you can almost feel from a distance. Its ribs expand, pause, contract the whole vast architecture of its body, rising and falling with a rhythm so slow and so deep that your own breathing, without any effort on your part, begins to synchronize with it. A long pause at the fullness of it. Out, slowly. It lowers its head to drink. The river accepts this. The surface breaks around the intrusion and then reforms, the water moving around and past, as it always does, indifferent to the scale of what is drinking from it. The creature drinks with its eyes half closed, a posture of such complete relaxation that it is almost difficult to look at directly. There is no vigilance in it, no scanning of the horizon, only the complete, animal surrender to the simple act of drinking cold river water on an ancient afternoon. You watch, and your body softens. This is something that happens in the presence of relaxed animals. A mirroring, a biological sympathy, something older than thought and deeper than decision. When a creature of this size and this ancientness settles into rest, something in the mammalian nervous system responds. Quiet follows. You feel it in your shoulders first, a releasing of a tension you had not known you were holding. Then in your jaw. Then somewhere behind your eyes, a loosening, a dimming of the particular alertness that modern life requires and that this ancient world does not. The second creature wades into the shallows. The water rises around its legs, cold and clear, swirling past in the way water always negotiates with obstacles, finding the path of least resistance, moving around rather than against. The creature stands there, in the middle of the ancient river, with an expression, if expression is the right word for something so old and so unhuman, of absolute contentment, of needs so completely met that the concept of wanting has temporarily ceased to apply. This is what enough feels like. Not abundance, not excess. Simply enough water when thirsty, shade when hot, ground firm enough to hold your weight, air rich enough to breathe. The great megafauna of this ancient world do not accumulate. They do not plan beyond the immediate turn of the season. They carry with them only what their bodies hold, and their bodies hold exactly what they need. And this economy, this perfect sufficiency, is written into every slow movement they make. Your eyes grow heavy. The third creature has settled at the river's edge, not drinking now, but simply resting. Its enormous weight distributed across the soft bank, its breathing even slower than before. It is not sleeping, but it is in that territory adjacent to sleep, that warm, dim country where the body is still but the mind is barely present, where awareness reduces itself to the most basic inputs: warmth, safety, the sound of water, the smell of the world. You know this territory. You are entering it now. The forest around the creatures is completely still. The birds have not resumed their calling. They are watching too, or resting too, or simply existing in the same suspended afternoon quiet that has settled over this bend of the ancient river like something physical, like something you could reach out and touch if you wanted to. A quality of air, a thickness of peace. The largest creature lifts its head once. It looks, without particular interest, across the river. Whatever it saw or sensed or simply checked on, it finds satisfactory. Its head descends again. Its breathing resumes its enormous, patient rhythm. Everything is fine here. Everything has always been fine here. This world does not know catastrophe in the way your world does. It knows drought and flood and cold and heat. It knows the full vocabulary of geological change, but it does not know the particular human catastrophe of too much information arriving too fast with nowhere to put it. It does not know the specific exhaustion of a mind that cannot stop processing. Here, there is only the river and the light and the breathing of ancient creatures at the water's edge. Here, there is only enough. Your body understands this even when your mind is too tired to. Your breath has slowed to match the rhythm of things far larger and far older than you. Your hands are open. Your weight is fully given to the earth. The sound of the river continues its patient, ancient murmur, and somewhere in the warm middle distance, the megafauna breathe their slow, enormous breaths, and the afternoon holds everything gently, without effort, the way afternoons in this ancient world have always done. You are not required to do anything, not one single thing. And as the earth continues its slow breathing all around you, the weight behind your eyes grows softer, and the world grows quieter, and the river moves on as it always has, carrying everything gently forward, asking nothing, releasing everything, flowing always and only toward rest. Time moves differently here. You have not walked far, or perhaps you have walked very far and simply did not notice. The way distance dissolves when the mind is quiet and the body is moving without. Urgency through a world that offers no resistance. The forest thinned gradually behind you. The trees became shorter, more sparse, their roots finding less purchase in ground that grew stonier and darker beneath your feet. And then the ground changed entirely, became something raw, something that belongs to a deeper layer of the world's history than soil and root systems do. You are standing at the edge of something ancient, Before you, the land descends toward water. But it is not the gentle riverbank you left behind. This is a coastline of young rock, dark basalt, cooled lava that solidified decades or centuries ago and has not yet had enough time to be worn smooth by the sea. It sits in great frozen waves and ridges, black and dense, still holding in its structure the memory of the movement it made when it was liquid. You can see it in the shapes, the way the rock curled as it cooled, the way it folded against itself, the way some surfaces are glassy and some are rough, with the small frozen bubbles of gases that escaped as the lava hardened. This rock was once the interior of the earth. That thought arrived slowly, and you let it. Somewhere far beneath your feet, the mantle of the planet is still moving, has always been moving, at a pace so slow that a human lifetime would not register as even a fraction of a single significant shift. But it moves. Continents drift apart, ocean floors spread, magma rises through fissures and pours out into the air and the sea and becomes, eventually, new land. The ground you were standing on was, not so very long ago in geological terms, part of the deep interior of the world. It came up, it cooled, it became solid, and now it sits at the edge of an ancient sea, being slowly, patiently reclaimed. You pick your way down to the water's edge. The rock is stable beneath your feet, heavy and permanent feeling, in a way that younger ground is not. There is a security in standing on basalt, a sense of being on something that has already survived its most dramatic transformation and come through the other side as something hard and enduring. The rock does not shift. It does not give. It simply is, beneath you, as solid as anything in the world. Steam rises from a crack a short distance away, not violently, not with any drama. A thin column of white vapor curling up from a narrow fissure in the rock, where water has found its way down through the basalt and met residual heat from below and come back up as steam. It rises, disperses, disappears into the air above. It has been doing this since the rock cooled, a quiet, continuous conversation between the water and the heat of the earth, conducted in whispers. You sit on a flat section of dark rock near the water. The sea here is unlike the river. It is vast in a way that rivers are not. It goes to the horizon and beyond, its surface textured by a light wind into thousands of small, slow-moving ridges that catch the afternoon light and release it in brief flashes. It is warm, this ancient sea, warmer than the oceans of your time, because the climate of this era runs slightly hotter, the ice caps smaller, the tropics wider. The warmth comes off the water in waves that you can feel on your face, a gentle, marine heat, salt-laced and soft. The waves arrive at the rock with a patience that is almost meditative. They are not large waves. This is a sheltered section of coast, and the water comes in low and slow, lifting over the outermost ridge of basalt, sliding across the flat interior surfaces, filling the small pools that have formed in depressions in the rock before retreating again. Each cycle takes longer than you expect. The water moves with great deliberateness here, as though it knows that the rock is going nowhere, that there is no urgency in the wearing down, that 10,000 years of this will accomplish what 10 waves cannot. You watch the nearest rock pool. It is small, perhaps, the size of both your hands placed flat together, and it is its own complete world. Small creatures move through it, unhurried. Something translucent clings to the rock wall below the waterline. The water is extraordinarily clear, the kind of clarity that only exists in a sea with no industrial runoff, no agricultural chemicals, no microplastics suspended invisibly throughout its body. You can see every grain of dark sand at the bottom of the pool, every tiny movement of every tiny life within it. A wave arrives and briefly overwhelms the pool. Fresh sea water pours in, cold and oxygenated, carrying with it small particles of organic matter from the open sea. The creatures in the pool respond, moving slightly, repositioning, taking advantage of the new input. And then the wave retreats, and the pool is itself again. Settled, still, going about its ancient business in the space between waves. Everything here exists in the space between wave and stillness, between heat and cold, between the deep interior of the earth and the open sky. This shoreline is a boundary, a place where different systems meet and negotiate, where the violence of volcanic creation softens into the patience of erosion, where fire becomes stone, becomes sand, becomes sea, floor becomes, eventually, stone again. You are sitting at the edge of a cycle so large it makes time feel different. The steam from the fissure continues to rise. The waves continue their patient arrival and retreat. The sun has moved further along its arc, and the light on the water has changed, warmer now, more golden, the kind of late afternoon light that makes everything it touches look like it belongs in a world that is fundamentally, essentially good. You feel the warmth of the dark rock beneath you. Basalt absorbs heat slowly and releases it slowly. It has been warming all day, and now it is giving that warmth back, gently, through the contact between the rock and your body. A deep, stored warmth. The warmth of a planet that has been running its enormous internal engine for 4 billion years, and has heat to spare, heat to share, heat seeping up through ancient stone to find you, exactly here, exactly now, and warm you from below as the sun warms you from above. You are held between two warmths. Your eyes close. The sound of the waves becomes everything, that slow, rhythmic advance and retreat, each cycle complete in itself, each wave arriving with the same patient intention and departing with the same unhurried grace. There is nothing in this sound that asks anything of you. It is simply the sound of the world doing what the world does, moving, always moving, but slowly enough that the movement feels like stillness. The steam rises. The rock holds its warmth. The ancient sea continues its vast, indifferent breathing at the edge of a world that is still finding its shape, still negotiating between fire and water, between the deep interior and the open sky, between what the earth has been and what it is slowly, patiently becoming. And you rest at the boundary of all of it, small and warm and held. Your breathing matching the waves now, without effort, without intention, in with the arriving water, out with the retreating. A rhythm as old as the coastline itself, as old as the relationship between lungs and air, as old as the first creature that crawled from a sea very much like this one, onto rock very much like this one, and breathed, for the first time, the open air of an ancient world. You are not the first to rest here. You will not be the last, and the waves do not mind either way. You leave the shore behind without deciding to. That is how movement happens in this world, not as a decision, but as a drift. A slow reorientation. The way a leaf on still water turns gradually without any visible cause, following currents too subtle to see. One moment you are facing the sea, and then, without drama, without urgency, you are facing the forest again, and your feet are already moving toward it. The trees here are different from the ones you woke beneath. Those were open, airy, generous with light. These are older, denser. They have been growing in this particular place for long enough that they have created their own climate, their own small weather system, their own relationship with moisture and temperature and light that exists independently of the world outside them. You can feel the change before you even step beneath the canopy. The air cools. The quality of sound shifts. The particular brightness of the afternoon softens into something more diffuse, more interior, more like the light inside a room where the curtains have been drawn against the day. You step inside, and the forest swallows the sound of the world. Not violently. The way deep water swallows light gradually, by degrees, each layer absorbing a little more until what reaches the bottom is something entirely transformed. The sound of the sea disappears first, cut off by the first dense row of trunks. Then the wind, which was a constant soft presence at the shoreline, reduces itself to an occasional stirring high in the canopy, barely audible, more felt than heard. And then even the birds, the distant, casual calling that has been the background of this entire ancient day, becomes sparse, occasional, a single note dropped into long silence, and then nothing. What remains is the forest's own sound. And it is a sound that takes time to hear. You have to stand still and let your ears adjust, the way eyes adjust to darkness slowly. Recalibrating, becoming sensitive to things that were always there but required a certain quietness to perceive. A soft creak from somewhere high above where two branches have grown against each other over decades and now shift, minutely, when the canopy moves. The near-silent drip of moisture from a broad leaf to the one below it to the dark earth below that. A sound beneath sound, the faint, barely there rustling of things moving in the leaf litter at your feet. Small, unhurried, going about the business of decomposition and feeding and living that has been happening in this particular patch of forest floor for longer than any of the individual trees above have been alive. The trees themselves are extraordinary. You stand at the base of one and look up, and the trunk rises beside you like something architectural, like something that was planned and built rather than grown. So straight and so vast is its upward reach. The bark is deeply furrowed, each groove running vertically for meters before branching, a map of decades written in texture. Where your hand rests against it, the bark is neither warm nor cold. It is the temperature of the forest itself, which is to say, it is exactly the temperature at which temperature stops being noticeable. A perfect neutrality, a surface that asks nothing of your skin. The canopy is so far above you that it feels theoretical. You can see it if you tilt your head back, a complex, layered ceiling of overlapping leaves and branches, each tree having negotiated its own particular arrangement with the light. Some leaves are enormous, broad and flat and held at angles precisely calculated by evolution to catch the maximum amount of the limited light that filters down this far. Others are small and numerous, spread across thousands of tiny branches in patterns that maximize surface area, that leave no photon uncaptured. Through the gaps, the sky is visible in small, irregular patches, blue, impossibly blue after the green dimness of the forest interior. Each patch of visible sky seems to glow with a brightness that the filtered light below cannot match. You find yourself watching one particular gap, a roughly oval opening in the canopy, perhaps 20 meters above, as a single broadleaf at its edge moves almost imperceptibly in a breeze you cannot feel down here, back and forth, back and forth. A slow, hypnotic pendulum motion that has been happening all afternoon and will continue all evening and is happening now, for you as a kind of gift from a world that does not know it is giving anything. Your body has become very still. This happens in forests. Something in the nervous system registers the enclosed, protected quality of deep woodland and responds with a settling and ancient mammalian response to being surrounded on all sides by living things, sheltered from open sky, held within a space that has its own integrity and its own defenses. Your ancestors sheltered in places like this. They slept in forests like this, their backs against trunks like these, listening to these same sounds, this same deep, layered quiet that is not silence but is the closest thing to it that the living world produces. You are safe in exactly the way your oldest self understands safety. Not the intellectual safety of locked doors and checked alarms. The animal safety of deep cover, of enclosed space, of a world that is alive in every direction and therefore watchful in every direction, and you are simply one more living thing within it, unremarkable, unthreatened, held. The light shifts. You notice it in the patches of canopy above, a very slight change in the quality of the light coming through the gaps. The afternoon is deepening. The sun has moved further along its ancient arc, and the light that filters down through this enormous living ceiling is taking on the first suggestion of gold. Still bright, still day. But the quality of it is different, softer, more horizontal, the kind of light that arrives in the later part of an afternoon and makes everything it touches look as though it is remembering something. A sound comes from deeper in the forest, low, soft, rhythmic. Something breathing, perhaps, in the middle distance, a large, slow breath, repeated at long intervals, with a quality of complete unconsciousness about it. Whatever is making that sound is asleep, or close enough to sleep that the distinction barely matters. It breathes in the deep interior of this ancient forest with the total surrender of a creature that has not one single reason to be anywhere other than exactly where it is. You feel the pull of that surrender. Your own breathing slows further. Your shoulders drop, you feel them descend a fraction, releasing a tension so habitual you had stopped perceiving it as tension at all. Your jaw loosens. The muscles around your eyes soften. Something in the center of your chest, that place where held things live, opens slightly and lets a small amount of the accumulated weight of being a conscious creature in a complicated world drift out and disappear into the rich, dark, absorbing air of the forest. The forest takes it without complaint. It takes everything. That is what forests do. They take the carbon and the moisture and the fallen things and the dead things, and they process all of it, slowly, completely, and return it to something new. Nothing is wasted here. Nothing is kept longer than it needs to be. Everything moves through and becomes something else, and the forest continues, patient and vast and entirely indifferent to the particular drama of any individual life within it. You lean against the great trunk behind you. The bark presses against your back, solid, textured, real in the most fundamental sense of the word. You close your eyes. The forest sounds continue around you, that deep, layered quiet that is fuller than silence, richer, more alive. The drip of moisture, the distant breath of something sleeping, the barely there creak of wood settling against wood far above. Nothing is rushing. Nothing has ever rushed here. The forest has been swallowing sound and time and urgency for millions of years, and it will continue to do so long after this afternoon has dissolved into the long, patient record of geological time, and right now, in this moment, it is swallowing yours. Gently, completely, without any effort at all. You are moving north. You do not know exactly when this shift happened, whether you walked, or whether time simply carried you the way rivers carry leaves, without asking permission, without requiring any effort from the thing being carried. The forest thinned again behind you. The air changed. And now you are standing in a landscape that is entirely different from everything that came before. Open and vast and cold, in a way that reaches deeper than skin. The sky here is enormous in a new way. Without the forest canopy, without the volcanic shorelines enclosing ridges of dark rock, the sky simply goes in every direction, from the ground up, without interruption. It is the same ancient sky you watched this morning from the riverbank, but here, in this open northern landscape, it feels different, wider, more exposed. The clouds are higher and thinner, stretched into long horizontal formations that the wind at altitude has pulled apart into pale, feathered shapes. Below them, the light is cool and clear and carries within it the particular quality of northern light, that flat, even illumination that casts no strong shadows and makes the landscape look slightly more real than landscapes usually do. And at the horizon, there is white. It begins as a brightness, a line of light along the northern edge of the world that at first seems simply like cloud. But as your eyes adjust, as the scale of the landscape settles into your perception, you understand that what you are seeing is not cloud, it is ice. The leading edge of a glacier that has been descending with agonizing patience. From higher ground, a vast, slow river of compressed snow and ice that has been building itself for thousands of years in the cold highlands to the north, and is now, with absolute geological inevitability, moving south. It is not moving quickly. It will never move quickly. This is ice that measures its progress in meters per year, that advances so slowly the advance is invisible to any individual observer, that has been pressing forward through the landscape with a force that nothing biological can resist, but that also carries within it none of the aggression or urgency of things that move faster. The glacier does not hurry. The glacier has not once, in its entire existence, hurried. It simply leans into the world with its enormous weight, and the world, slowly, gives way. You walk toward it. The ground beneath your feet changes as you approach. The vegetation becomes lower, more sparse, small, tough plants that have adapted to cold and to the particular soil that exists at the margins of glacial advance. Soil that has been ground from rock by ice, that is fine and mineral-rich and young in geological terms. Nothing large grows here, nothing deep-rooted, but things do grow small and close to the ground, and intensely, specifically alive, in the way that things which survive difficult conditions are always intensely alive. The cold deepens as you approach. It is not a hostile cold. You are not in danger here. The temperature is cold, the way early mornings are cold, in a way that makes you more awake, more present, more aware of the boundary between your body and the world around it. Your breath becomes visible, small clouds of condensation that form and immediately dissipate in the dry glacial air. Each breath is visible proof of warmth inside you, of the quiet metabolic fire that your body has been maintaining without your supervision for your entire life. You stop at the base of the ice. It riseth before you a wall of compressed time. Not vertical, not dramatic. The glacier's leading edge here is a gradual slope, the ice grading from the pale blue-white of its upper surfaces down to a darker, dirtier grey at the base, where it meets the ground. That grey is the accumulated material of the glacier's passage, rock dust and silt, and the ground remains of everything the ice has moved over in its long, patient journey south. The bottom of the glacier is not clean. It is working ice, grinding ice. Ice that carries within its base layer the material of landscapes that passed through years and decades and centuries ago. You reach out and touch it. The cold is immediate and total, a surface cold that goes deeper than temperature, that has a quality almost like silence. Like the cold is the physical form of quiet. Your hand against the ice feels the particular reality of something that has been building itself in darkness and cold and pressure for thousands of years. Something that has never been warm. Something that exists entirely outside the category of warmth and simply inhabits its own category. Ancient, compressed, patient, blue-white. You take your hand away. The cold lingers in your palm for a moment, and then your body's warmth reclaims it, gently, without effort. You sit on a low rock at the glacier's margin. The ice makes sounds. This surprises you, though it should not. The glacier is moving. After all, even now, even as you sit beside it, it creaks. Not loudly, not dramatically. A slow, deep, interior sound, more felt than heard, that comes from deep within the ice, where the pressure of its own weight creates movement along crystal boundaries too small to see. The sound of ice being ice. The sound of an enormous thing doing what enormous things do. Moving very slowly through a world that is moving too. Meltwater runs at the glacier's base. A thin stream, barely more than a trickle, emerging from the contact point between ice and ground. The place where the pressure of the glacier above creates just enough heat to melt the bottommost layer, constantly, so that the glacier slides on a thin film of its own meltwater. The stream runs clear and extraordinarily cold, catching the flat northern light and sending it in small, bright movements across the dark soil at the glacier's foot. This water has been ice for 1,000 years. It was snow that fell in some long-past winter on high ground to the north, and it compressed and compacted and became part of the glacier and has been traveling south ever since. Slowly, and now it is liquid again. Briefly, before it joins a larger stream, and eventually a river, and eventually the sea. 1,000 years of frozen patience, released in a moment into movement again. Everything here is patient. The cold itself seems patient, not aggressive, not penetrating, but simply present. As it has been present in these northern margins for longer than most of the species alive in the warmer south have existed. The cold is simply one of the Earth's conditions, like warmth, like wet, like dark. It asks nothing. It means nothing. It is simply the temperature that ice requires, maintained here by a planet that contains multitudes, tropics, and ice margins, and everything between, all coexisting, all part of the same vast and varied system. You pull your knees toward your chest. The cold at your back from the glacier is balanced by a faint warmth at your face from the pale winter sun, still present, still doing its ancient work, just lower in the sky and less insistent than it was in the south. You are balanced between cold and warmth, between ice and sky, between the deep past of the glacier and the slow future of the meltwater, making its way toward the sea. Your thoughts are very far away. This is what cult does, what genuine, environmental cult does, the kind that exists before artificial warmth made it easy to ignore. It draws awareness into the body, into the immediate, into the simple, fundamental fact of being a warm, living thing in a cold world. There is no room in this awareness for anything complex. No room for the layered anxieties of a complicated life. Only the cold, only the warmth inside you. Only the slow sound of ice settling into itself, and the thin, bright trickle of ancient meltwater, and the vast pale sky of a northern afternoon in a world that is 3 million years from anything you have ever known. Your eyes are very heavy now. The cold and the quiet and the enormous patience of the ice have done something to the last remaining edges of your wakefulness, smoothed them, softened them, the way the glacier itself smooths the edges of the landscape it moves through, not violently, simply by the application of sustained, gentle, irresistible pressure over time. The ice creaks, once, deep inside itself. The meltwater runs. The sky holds its pale, northern light steady and even over everything. And time does not move quickly here. Time has never moved quickly here. Here time moves the way glaciers move forward. Always forward, but so slowly that in any given moment it feels perfectly, completely still. The cold releases you gently. The way sleep releases a dream, not all at once, not with any clear boundary, but gradually. The glacier and its pale northern light softening at the edges of your awareness. The cold receding, warmth returning in its place, and then the sound changes. The deep interior creak of the ice gives way to something else entirely, a sound that is fuller, more encompassing, more total than anything you have heard today. Water. Everywhere, in every direction. You are beneath the surface of the prehistoric sea. There is no moment of transition you can identify. No splash, no descent, no held breath. You are simply here, suspended in warm, ancient water, surrounded by the particular blue-green light that exists only in the upper reaches of the ocean, where sunlight still penetrates, but has been transformed by its passage through water into something softer and more diffuse than it is in open air. A light without edges, a light that comes from everywhere and casts no shadows. The most evenly distributed, most gentle illumination that the natural world produces. You are not cold. This is the shallow, tropical reach of the ancient Pliocene Sea, warmer than the oceans of your time, clearer, its chemistry different in ways too subtle to identify, but immediately perceptible as a quality of the water itself. A softness, a richness. The water here carries within it everything. An ocean carries salt and mineral, and the microscopic residue of billions of lives being lived at every depth, but it holds all of this lightly. The way the air holds scent. Present, but not overwhelming. You are not sinking. You are suspended at a depth of perhaps 10 meters, far enough below the surface that the world above is a distorted, moving brightness, close enough that the light is still generous. You hang in the water column without effort, without movement, your body neutrally buoyant in a way that removes the last remaining awareness of gravity. This is what weightlessness feels like, not the dramatic weightlessness of falling, but the quiet weightlessness of perfect suspension, of being held by something that surrounds you completely. The ocean holds you the way nothing else can. On land, gravity is always present, always pulling, always requiring your muscles to respond, always creating the low-level effort of simply existing in a body that has weight. But here, that negotiation dissolves. The water takes your weight entirely. Every muscle can release. Every joint can decompress. You are simply present in the water, held by it, surrounded by it, the boundary between your body and the ocean less distinct than it has ever felt. You breathe, slowly, completely. The breath moves through you from bottom to top, filling first the lowest part of your lungs, then the middle, then the upper chest, and as it does, your body rises infinitesimally in the water column. And as you exhale, equally slowly, you descend again, a breath-driven tide. Your own personal rhythm of rise and fall, so subtle it is barely movement at all, just the gentlest oscillation around a point of perfect stillness. Around you, the ocean is alive. Not dramatically, not in the way of nature documentaries with their urgent music and their close-up predation. The life here is going about itself at the pace that ocean life actually moves, which is, for the most part, extraordinarily slow. A large fish passes at the edge of your vision, moving with the unhurried efficiency of a creature that has solved the problem of movement so completely that effort is invisible. Its body curves minimally, its tail sweeps in long, slow arcs, and it is gone, absorbed back into the blue-green distance, without ceremony. Closer to you, smaller things drift. Translucent organisms, jellyfish, or things that will eventually become jellyfish, or things that are entirely their own category in this ancient sea, move through the water with a pulsing, rhythmic motion that is the most passive form of locomotion imaginable. Each pulse barely moves them. The ocean itself is doing most of the work, carrying them on currents too slow to perceive, transporting them from one part of the sea to another over hours and days and weeks without any apparent effort on their part. They are the most relaxed things in the world. You watch one drift past a pale disk, faintly luminous, trailing threads of extraordinary fineness that move in the water the way hair moves in air. It does not know you are here. It does not know anything, in any sense that involves knowing. It simply pulses, opens and closes, drifts, exists. And in its existence there is a kind of purity, a life so stripped of complexity that watching it feels like watching something sacred, something that has arrived at the furthest possible simplification of what being alive requires. Pulse, drift, pulse, drift. Your own heartbeat finds the rhythm. This happens without intention, without effort, the way the body has always synchronized itself to the rhythms of the world around it. Your heart, which has been beating at the particular pace of a waking, aware, processing mind all day, begins to slow, begins to match, begins to find in the jellyfish's rhythm something it recognizes as the pace it would choose if it were ever entirely free to choose. Slower, longer between beats, quieter. The light from above shifts as something large, passes between you and the surface, a slow-moving shadow that sweeps across the water column, and then is gone. Whatever cast it already beyond your field of vision. The ocean accepts these passages, without remark. Things move through it constantly, at every depth, and the water simply moves aside and then reforms, undisturbed, as though nothing passed at all. This is what the ocean knows that land does not. That passage leaves no mark. That movement requires no record. That something can move through a space, completely and really, and the space can return to exactly what it was, and neither the space nor the thing that passed through it is diminished by any of it. The ocean has been practicing this for longer than life has existed on this planet. It was here before the first cell. It will be here, in some form, until the sun expands and takes everything with it. And in the long middle of that enormous span, it simply holds things and releases them, and holds other things and releases those too. It will hold you now, for as long as you need. You feel yourself descend, very slightly, in the water column, the exhalation of a breath you did not know you were holding, a final release of tension that had been living somewhere in your chest, behind your sternum, in the particular place where the day's accumulated weight collects. It releases into the water. The water accepts it. The water accepts everything. The blue-green light pulses very softly, not from any single source, simply the natural variation of light filtered through moving surface water. The slight brightening and dimming as small waves far above catch more or less sunlight and pass it down through the layers. It has the quality of a heartbeat, of breathing, as though the ocean itself is alive in the most fundamental sense, which it is, which it has always been, every cubic meter of it teeming with life too small to see, but present in quantities that the mind cannot hold without dissolving. You are surrounded by life, microscopic, patient, ancient life, the kind that has been here since the earliest chapters of this planet's biography, and will be here in its final chapters too. Life that does not sleep or wake, does not feel urgency or relief, does not carry the particular weight of consciousness. Life that simply is, continuously, in every direction, in water that has been holding it for hundreds of millions of years. Your eyes close in the warm, ancient water. The blue-green light persists through your eyelids, a soft, reddish warmth. The light of the sun filtered through kilometers of atmosphere and then 10 meters of prehistoric ocean, arriving at your closed eyes as something barely brighter than the inside of a dream. The jellyfish drifts past again, or another one. It does not matter. Pulse, drift, pulse. The water holds you. Your breath rises and falls in its long, slow rhythm, and the ocean rises and falls around it, and somewhere far above the surface of the ancient sea, the sun continues its dependable arc across an empty sky, and somewhere far below, in the darkness of the deep ocean floor, things older than imagination move through the cold dark in complete and total silence. And here, in the warm middle water, in the blue-green light, in the held and weightless space between surface and deep, you simply float, entirely held, entirely released. The same thing here in this ancient water, exactly the same thing. The water releases you as gently as it received you. The warmth of the ancient sea becomes the warmth of open air, and you are lying on your back again, this time on a wide, flat plain that stretches in every direction, two horizons you cannot quite see in the growing dark. The ground beneath you is dry grass and compressed earth, still holding the last of the day's warmth in the way that open ground does, a slow radiating heat that reases through the thin layer of vegetation and finds your back and stays there, steady and generous, like something that has been waiting all day to give this warmth away. The sun is gone, not dramatically, not with any final flourish of color. Though there was color, there was a long, slow dissolution of gold into amber, into a deep reddish purple that spread across the western horizon for what felt like a very long time before it too faded, quietly, into the particular blue-gray of a world moving from day into night. And now that blue-gray has deepened further and further, and the last of it is fading at the western edge of the sky, and the east is already fully dark, and the stars are arriving. They do not all arrive at once. The first ones appear while the sky is still grey, the brightest ones, the ones whose light is strong enough to survive the last of the twilight. Then more, then more. Then, as the final light at the horizon dims and disappears, the sky opens. There is no other word for it. Opens. The stars of a prehistoric sky, unpolluted by any artificial light, on a flat plain with no tree canopy and no cloud cover and no atmosphere fouled by the particular haze of a world with too many fires burning this sky, is something that the vast majority of humans who will ever live will never see. The stars do not just appear in it, they fill it, they crowd it, they layer it. Foreground stars, bright and distinct, background stars numerous beyond counting, and behind those a faint, continuous luminosity, the light of stars too far away to distinguish individually, blending into a soft glow that covers everything. The Milky Way is overhead, not the suggestion of it, not the faint smear that a clear night in a dark rural area might offer. The full, complete, overwhelming reality of it. A band of light so dense and so detailed that it seems three-dimensional, seems to have depth, seems to go back and back and back into distances that the mind reaches toward and cannot hold. It arches overhead from horizon to horizon, slightly tilted, its center in the direction of a constellation that will not be named for millions of years, brighter than the rest, a dense luminous core surrounded by arms of decreasing brightness that fade gradually into the general star field. You stare at it. Your mind goes very quiet. This is what an overwhelming view does not excite, as one might expect, but quiets. The mind reaches its limit, the limit of what it can process and categorize and respond to, and it simply stops trying. It opens instead, receives instead, becomes, for a moment, as wide and as still as what it is looking at. The stars do not move, or rather, they move so slowly that within the span of a human awareness, they appear completely still. The earth is rotating beneath you. You are, right now, moving through space at a speed that would be terrifying if it were legible to the senses. But the distance of the stars makes this movement invisible. They simply hang there, in their ancient positions, burning with the particular indifference of things that produce energy on a scale that makes everything biological seem like a brief, small warmth in an enormous cold. And yet, their light is reaching you, right now, this very moment. Light that left some of those stars before this planet existed, before the solar system condensed from its original cloud of gas and dust, is arriving at your eyes on this prehistoric plane, and being received by the same biological machinery that all eyes use, converted into signal, processed into experience. The universe is delivering something to you directly, across distances and time scales that the mind cannot hold, and your body is receiving it the way it receives warmth or sound. You are connected to all of it, not metaphysically, not as a comfortable idea to carry through a difficult day. Literally, materially, chemically connected. The elements in your body, the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the carbon that is the foundation of every biological molecule you contain, were forged in the interiors of stars that exploded before the sun existed. You are, in the most literal possible sense, made of what you are looking at. The universe looking at itself, briefly, through the particular instrument of a living creature lying on its back on a prehistoric plane. The thought arrives and then dissolves. You do not need to hold it. It is simply true, whether you hold it or not, and truth of that scale does not require your assistance to persist. You can let it go. You can let everything go. The plane is holding you. The earth is holding you. The gravity of a planet that is itself held by the gravity of a star, that is held by the gravity of a galaxy, that is part of a structure so large, it does not have a name, yet all of it, the entire nested system of holding, is holding you. Right now, here, on this dark, warm plain under 10,000 stars, something moves in the grass nearby, small, quick, gone before you fully register it, a night creature beginning its nocturnal business. The small mammal that will eventually, over millions of years and through processes of unimaginable complexity, contribute something to the long chain of being that leads eventually to you. It rustles in the dry grass for a moment and then is gone, and the plain is silent again, except for the barely audible sound of the wind moving through the grass in long, slow waves. You can hear the grass moving, that sound, dry grass in a light wind, a soft, collective whisper, thousands of individual blades moving together in a wave that crosses the plain from one direction and fades in another, is one of the oldest sounds in the world. It has been happening on flat, grassy plains since the first grasses evolved, since the first open landscapes formed, since the first creatures that would eventually become the kind of creature that would eventually become you first moved out of the forest and onto ground like this. The sound of grass in wind. It enters through your ears and travels somewhere deeper than hearing, somewhere in the body that remembers this sound from before memory was a thing that individuals carried, from the long communal memory of a species that spent millions of years on plains like this one, listening to exactly this sound, finding in it exactly what you are finding in it now. Safety, simplicity, the sound of a world that is just being itself. The stars wheel overhead, imperceptibly. The grass whispers. A meteor crosses the sky, a brief, clean line of light that exists for less than a second, and then is gone, leaving no trace, asking for nothing, making no sound. Your eyes follow it to its vanishing point, and stay there for a moment, at that empty section of sky, before drifting back to the general abundance of the stars. Your body is completely still. Your arms are at your sides. Your legs are straight. Your weight is fully, completely given to the earth. Every muscle released, every joint at rest. You are as horizontal as you have ever been, as open to the sky as it is possible to be. Nothing between you and the stars. No roof, no canopy, no glass. Nothing but a few miles of ancient atmosphere growing thinner and thinner until it dissolves into the vacuum that the stars live in. A vacuum that has held these stars for billions of years, that will hold them for billions more. The wind moves through the grass. Your eyelids are very heavy now, not with effort or with the particular heaviness of a tired mind, but with the gentle, inevitable weight of a body that has been given everything it needs. Warmth from the earth, cool air from the sky, the sound of grass and distant wind, the light of 10,000 stars, asking nothing, meaning nothing, simply being as everything in this ancient world simply is. Your breath is very slow. In the spaces between breaths, the plain is perfectly, completely quiet, and the stars burn on in their ancient silence, as they have always burned, as they will always burn, in the enormous patient dark that holds all things gently and without preference. The galaxy and the plain and the grass and the small warm creature lying in the middle of it all, growing still, growing quiet, growing slowly indistinguishable from the darkness that surrounds it. Breathing in, a long, soft pause. Breathing out, the stars remain. Something has changed. You cannot identify what, exactly. The plain is still beneath you. The stars are still above. The grass still whispers in the same slow wind it has always whispered in. But something in the quality of the world has shifted, a deepening, a settling, as though the night itself has moved into a later and more interior hour, as though the earth has exhaled something it had been holding, and what remains is quieter than anything that came before it. Time is doing something different now. During the day, during the river and the forest and the volcanic shore and the glacier's edge, time moved in the way time usually moves. One thing followed another. Light changed, landscape shifted, creatures appeared and dissolved back into their ancient world. There was sequence. There was the feeling of moving through something. But now, in the deep middle of this prehistoric night, time has changed its nature. It has become less like a river and more like an ocean. Less like something moving in a direction and more like something simply present in every direction at once. You can feel it, or rather, you can feel the absence of its usual pressure. The absence of the sense that time is moving away from you, that moments are being spent, that the night is being used up. Instead, there is simply an enormous, still present, a now that does not feel like it is ending. The Earth is 3 million years old from your perspective. But the Earth's perspective is different. From inside geological time, from within the vast, patient timescale, that the rocks and the ice and the deep ocean operate on 3 million years is not very long. It is a chapter, a paragraph, a few slow sentences in a story that began 4.5 billion years ago and has no visible ending. The era you are resting in this warm, late Pliocene night is simply one moment in a sequence of moments so long that the mind, if it tries to hold the whole of it, does not panic or feel small. It simply goes quiet. The way water goes quiet when it becomes very deep. You let your mind do this now. Let it go quiet in the way it does when it stops trying to hold things and simply receives instead. The stars are still there. The grass is still there. But you are no longer quite seeing them in the way you were before. No longer quite focusing, quite registering, quite processing what the eyes are sending. The images arrive and dissolve without quite becoming thoughts. A soft blur of light and dark. A sound that is almost sound. A temperature that is simply the background condition of existing here. You are between wakefulness and sleep. This is the most ancient human territory of all, more ancient than language, more ancient than fire, more ancient than the first deliberate tool. Every creature that has ever lived has known this territory. This borderland between the aware and the unaware, between the self that perceives and the self that simply rests. Every animal that has ever closed its eyes against a dark sky has passed through this same threshold, with the same slow dissolving of the particular, the same gentle loss of the edges of things. You are joining a lineage so long it has no beginning. The night deepens, or you deepen into it. The distinction is not clear and does not need to be. Somewhere in the distance, far, far to the south, beyond the range of hearing and beyond the range of sight, in a direction you cannot see, from here a volcano is producing light. Not dramatically, not eruptively, simply the dull, persistent glow of a vent that has been open for centuries, releasing heat and gas into the night air with the same patient continuity that the glacier released cold and that the river released sound. The earth expressing its interior. The planet reminding itself and everything on it that it is alive in its own way, in the deep geological sense that it has heat and movement and process running through it continuously, from the iron core outward through the mantle and the crust to the surface where the grass grows and the creatures sleep. You cannot see this glow from here, but you are connected to it, the same planet, the same deep heat, the same continuous process that will, over millions and millions of years, rearrange everything, close this sea and open another, raise these mountains and erode them, advance these glaciers and melt them, evolve these creatures and eventually, through a process so long and so indirect that calling it a plan would be absurd, produce the conditions for consciousness. For you, this thought does not arrive with drama. It arrives the way dawn arrives on a cloudy day, not as a sudden brightness, but as a gradual lessening of the dark. A gentle recognition. You are here, on this plane, in this ancient night, and the earth is here too, conducting its slow and enormous business all around you and beneath you and above you, and you are part of it, not separate from it, not a visitor to it, despite the feeling of arrival that began this long day. You have always been part of it. Your atoms have always been part of it, and they will be part of it long after the particular arrangement that makes you you has dissolved and redistributed itself into the patient, recycling body of the world. This is not a frightening thought. It arrives as comfort, as the particular comfort that comes from recognizing that you are held within something so much larger than yourself, that your individual weight, the weight of your worries, your history, your accumulated and unresolved, is simply not significant at the scale of what holds you. A grain of sand resting on the ocean floor does not worry about drowning. It is already part of the ocean. It has always been part of the ocean. The stars turn overhead very slowly. The grass whispers. Your breath, which has been growing slower and more shallow for a long time now, moves in and out with barely any movement of your chest at all. Just the faintest rise, the faintest fall, the minimum necessary breath of a body approaching the quietest state it can reach while still remaining in contact with the world. Between eras, the earth rests. This is something that geological time teaches, if you sit inside it long enough. Between the great events, the eruptions, the glacial advances, the mass extinctions, the evolutionary leaps, there are long, long silences, periods of relative stability that last for millions of years, during which the world simply exists, grows, breathes, conducts its business without drama. These quiet eras are not lesser than the dramatic ones. They are not waiting for something to happen. They simply are, fully and completely, in their own right. This night is one of those silences. This plane, under this sky, in this era, it is a silence between events. Something has settled over the world. You become aware of it slowly, the way you become aware of most things now, in this deep and quiet place between wakefulness and sleep, not all at once, not as a sudden perception, but gradually, the way the body becomes aware of temperature changing in the night, a degree at a time. Imperceptible in any single moment, undeniable across many moments accumulated together. The air is different. There is something in it. Something so fine and so light that it barely registers as physical. More like a quality than a substance. More like a change in the texture of the atmosphere than anything you could hold in your hand. But it is there, a faint mineral softness in the air, a slight dulling of the starlight, a new smell, ancient and dry and strangely neutral, without the green richness of the forest or the salt complexity of the sea. Something older than both, something that came from deeper in the earth than either soil or ocean. Ash, from somewhere far away, far enough that the sound of whatever produced it never reached this plane, far enough that the light of it was swallowed by distance and darkness long before it arrived. Here, a volcano has spoken, not violently, not catastrophically, simply in the way that volcanoes speak when they are not being dramatic, which is most of the time. A slow, sustained exhalation of gas and particulate matter into the upper atmosphere, spreading on high-altitude winds across hundreds of kilometers, settling with extraordinary patience toward the ground. It is settling now, around you, on you, the finest possible particles of pulverized ancient rock, of minerals that were part of the deep interior of the earth days or weeks ago, drifting down through the night air in a fall so slow it is barely distinguishable from not falling at all. You could not see individual particles even in full daylight. They are too small, too fine, but collectively, over time, they settle on the grass, on the dark earth, on the broad leaves of the trees at the plain's edge, on your skin if you are still enough to let them. And you are still enough. You are so still that the ash settles on you the way it settles on stone. There is no sound to this. That is the first and most remarkable thing about ashfall. Its absolute silence. Rain has sound. Snow has a barely there whisper, but ash has nothing. It arrives in complete and total quiet, making no announcement, asking for no acknowledgement. It simply descends, and the world beneath it is muffled, and the muffling happens so gradually that you cannot identify the moment at which quiet became quieter. But quieter it has become. The grass still whispers, but softer now, its movement dampened slightly by the accumulation on each blade, the fine weight of ash reducing the sound of wind through vegetation to something barely above silence. The stars are still visible, but through a new filter, a faint, atmospheric softness that gives the brighter ones a very slight halo, a diffusion of their edges, as though the sky itself has been given the quality of frosted glass. Everything is softer. That is the word for what ash does to a landscape. Not darker, not colder, not heavier, softer. It rounds the edges of things. It fills the small spaces between individual grass blades, between pebbles, between the furrowed sections of tree bark. It creates a uniform pale surface on everything it touches, a surface that has no sharp lines, no strong contrasts, only gentle gradations from slightly lighter to slightly darker. The world is being softened around you as you rest. You feel it on your face, not as weight, not as irritation, not as any kind of intrusion, simply as a change in the quality of the air against your skin. A new texture to the night, something arriving so gently that the word arriving barely applies, something simply becoming present, the way sleep becomes present, not through any identifiable entrance, but through a gradual accumulation until it is simply there and has perhaps been there for some time, and you are only now noticing. Your mind is very slow now. The thoughts that move through it, if they can still be called thoughts, these late, formless impressions, move like the ash moves, without direction, without urgency, drifting rather than traveling, arriving at no particular destination because there is no particular destination, because this quality of mind does not have destinations, only the slow drift through a space that has no edges. The volcano that sent this ash is silent now, or still speaking, still exhaling, still sending its fine particulate breath upward into the atmosphere, but silent in the way that continuous things are silent, the way the river was silent in its own way, the way the glacial was silent, things that make sound so consistent and so sustained that the sound becomes indistinguishable from quiet. Everything continuous becomes a kind of silence. Your breath is continuous now, in this same way, so slow, so consistent, so without variation that it has become part of the background of the world rather than a sound that interrupts it. You breathe and the ash settles, and the stars turn their imperceptible degrees, and the grass whispers its quietened whisper, and all of it is one continuous thing, one sustained note held by the world, too long and too even to register as sound at all. Just presence, just the fact of everything being here. The ash has changed the smell of the night. Beneath the mineral dryness of it, beneath the ancient stone and deep earth's quality that is the ash's own character, the other smells of the plain are still present, the dry grass, the dark soil, the faint vegetative complexity of a living landscape breathing in the dark. But the ash overlays all of it with something that has no biological source, something that comes from a different layer of the world's chemistry altogether. It smells like the inside of the earth, like something that was never meant to be on the surface, that belongs to the deep interior where pressure and heat create substances that the surface world never produces on its own. It smells like deep time. If time had a smell, if the millions of years compressed into the rock that the volcano ground up and sent skyward had a smell, it would be this: ancient, mineral, completely indifferent to biology, to weather, to the surface concerns of living things. The smell of something that has been here since long before anything was alive to smell it. You breathe it in, slowly, fully, the way you have been breathing all night, each breath a little slower than the last, each one going a little further into the body before it turns and comes back out. It does not harm you. This ash, this distant ancient exhalation, at this concentration, at this distance from its source, it is simply part of the air, part of the night, part of the continuous exchange between the deep interior of the earth and its surface that has been happening since the planet formed, and will continue until it ends. You are breathing something that has been inside the earth. It has been inside mountains. It has been part of the pressure and heat and darkness of a world beneath the world. And now it is here, in your lungs briefly, and then you breathe it back out and it rejoins the night air and settles somewhere else. Everything passes through. Nothing stays. The ash continues to settle. On the grass, on the earth, on the stone, on you. A thin, pale, impossibly fine layer accumulating at a pace so slow it will take hours to become visible, days to become significant. The landscape is being preserved. In a sense, the way landscapes downwind of volcanoes are sometimes preserved. A layer of ash recording this exact moment, this exact arrangement of grass and stone and dark earth, in a record that might persist for millions of years. This moment is being preserved. You, lying here, in this prehistoric night, breathing slowly while the ash settles, this moment is being recorded by the earth in its own patient way. Long after everything alive in this landscape has moved on, or transformed or dissolved back into the cycling matter of the world, The record of this night might remain, a thin, pale line in the geology of a future landscape, a chemical signature, an absence of biological material beneath an ash layer that marks a quiet night when a distant volcano breathed, and the world grew soft and still. Your eyes are closed, or they were already closed, and you simply know this now, the way you know things in this borderland between awareness and sleep, not through fresh perception, but through a gentle inventory of what already is. Eyes closed, breath slow, body still, ash settling, stars turning, grass barely whispering, the world muffled and soft and quieted to the furthest possible degree by the fine, ancient particulate breath of a volcano you will never see, in a night that is as quiet as nights in this world ever become, which is very quiet, which is so quiet that the silence has a texture now, the texture of ash, fine and soft and pale, covering everything, rounding every edge, filling every small space, until the landscape is one continuous, gentle surface with no sharp angles and no hard lines. Only softness, only the slow drift of things settling, only the ancient, patient, completely indifferent earth conducting its deep business all around you while you rest, while you rest, while you rest. There is no boundary anymore between you and the ground beneath you, between your breath and the air around you, between the warmth of your body and the warmth of the earth that has been holding you through this entire, long, ancient night. These boundaries, which seemed so clear and so necessary when the day began, when you first opened your eyes into prehistoric air and felt the sharp, clean fact of being a separate thing in a separate world, have been dissolving, gradually, section by section, breath by breath, for longer than you have been keeping track. And now they are simply gone, not frighteningly, not as loss, as completion, the way a river is complete when it reaches the sea, not ended, not diminished, but arrived at the thing it was always moving toward, the thing it has always been a part of, the thing that was always waiting for it with the particular patience of something that does not experience waiting as waiting at all. You have arrived at stillness. The ash is still settling. You are aware of this, the way you are aware of your own heartbeat, in very quiet moments, not as a sound or a sensation exactly, but as a fact, a background condition. The world is still doing its gentle, ancient work all around you, and you are still here within it. And both of these things are true simultaneously and without contradiction. Your breath is very slow, slower than it has been all day, slower than breath usually is in waking life, slower than the careful breathing of meditation or the deliberate breathing of someone trying to calm themselves. This is not deliberate. This is simply what breathing becomes when everything that usually speeds it up has dissolved, when there is no urgency, no processing, no low-level alertness maintaining itself against some possible future requirement. Just breath, just the minimum, beautiful, ancient exchange of air. The ground beneath you is not separate from you now. This is not imagination. This is something the body understands when it has been still long enough, when the muscles have released completely, when the weight has been given over entirely to the earth without reservation. The pressure of the ground against your back, constant, even, complete, stops feeling like contact between two separate things and begins to feel like continuity. Like you and the earth are one material, differentiated only by the fact that your portion of it is temporarily, briefly, warm and breathing. Temporarily, briefly. In geological terms, a human life is not even a moment. It is less than a moment. It is something that happens between moments, in the pause between one geological second and the next. An entire human life unfolds and concludes, and its material is returned to the cycling body of the world. The stone beneath you has been stone for millions of years. It will be stone for millions more. And somewhere in the middle of its long stone existence, you rested on it for a night, and the stone did not notice. And that is not indifference. That is simply the scale of things. The scale of things is restful. When everything is this large and this patient, there is nothing left for urgency to attach to. Urgency requires a narrow time frame. It requires the feeling that the window is closing, that the moment must be caught or it will be gone. But in geological time, no window closes. Every moment simply becomes the next moment, which becomes the next, which becomes the next, in a sequence so long that the word sequence barely applies. It is less like a sequence and more like a condition. A permanent condition of time, simply being. You are inside that condition now. The stars have moved. Not dramatically, just the slow, barely perceptible arc that they trace all night. The Earth's rotation carrying them in their great circles around the celestial poles. The ones that were overhead when the night began have drifted west. New ones have risen in the east. But they are all the same stars, the same ancient lights that have been here since long before this planet existed, that will be here long after it is gone. Their movement is the movement of the Earth, not of the stars themselves. You are the thing moving, carried by a planet spinning in the dark, and the stars are simply the reference points by which you can see this, the fixed background against which everything closer moves. You are moving through space right now, at extraordinary speed. The Earth rotates. The Earth orbits the Sun. The Sun orbits the center of the galaxy. The galaxy moves through the local group. The local group moves through the universe. At every scale, at every level, you are in motion, and yet you feel completely, perfectly, totally still. This is the greatest stillness. Not the absence of movement, but the presence of so much movement at so many scales that it cancels itself into peace. You cannot feel the Earth rotating. You cannot feel the solar system's long orbit. You cannot feel the galaxy's slow spiral. All of that motion accumulated produces this, the feeling of lying perfectly still on ancient ground under ancient stars, breathing slowly, with nothing to do and nowhere to be. The ash on your skin is cool, not cold, cool. The faintest, most delicate surface sensation, the accumulated settling of a night's worth of fine volcanic particles, each one invisible, together creating this gentle, uniform coolness that covers you like something softer than any blanket. The world has covered you. The ancient Earth, breathing out its deep interior through a distant volcano,